Okay, Karen, I've been looking forward to this one for a very long time,
I know.
right? I talk all the time about how I live on heaven on earth because somehow I was able to bamboozle you into marrying me. And the fact that you're still with me today after all these years and everything we've been through, there's just no other words that would fit the bill when it comes to describing all of my life with you, but heaven on earth, right?
Oh, that's very sweet.
No, that's true. That's reality. But now, what if everyone on this planet could experience heaven without needing to marry you?
Well, I was getting excited about the thought of polygamy for a minute there, but but that would be just a lot of work. So.
Well, yeah. Well, then what if anyone could visit the heaven,
Oh,
spend as much time there as they wanted, speak to whomever they wanted while there, and come back without any of the petty near-death experience side effects?
oh, well, that would be nice.
I'm telling you, prepare yourself because this show promises to be nothing short of heavenly. Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and
we
Scully,
both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And today we're off to heaven. Our guest is a past board member of the Newton Institute whose mission is to uncover the mysteries of the afterlife. Now, with the help of more than 250 trained facilitators scattered across 48 countries, they've actually discovered what happens to a person at death, where they go, and what they do while they are there waiting to reincarnate. We know this process to be called life between lives, of course, and with over 70,000 successful sessions, they have, in a sense, mapped out the afterlife or heaven.
Wow.
Yes. He's the author of 3 hours and 33 minutes in heaven, based on his own experiences with the afterlife. And he's here today to walk us through the astounding modality. Regan Forson, welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. How are you?
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I love that we can talk about this in a fun way because some people get too serious about it. But
Yeah.
back in the 90s, Michael Newton, who was a hypnotherapist, he was a regular hypnotherapist. He was not particularly a spiritual guy, didn't have a particular religion he followed. He said he was more agnostic than atheist or anything, but he just didn't know. That's what agnostics do. They just, I don't know. And he was helping a person, I forget now if it was to stop smoking or lose weight, one of the things hypnotherapists do.
Mhm.
And so at the end of the session, we count people up so that they come back, fully aware, so they're not walking around like a zombie, the rest of the day. So he
Like
starts
me
to
in the
count.
mornings.
Yeah, it's like that. So he starts to count the client up, and the client refuses and says, "No, I don't want to come out of hypnosis." And he says, "Well, come on, I'm going to count to 1 to 5, and you'll be on." He says, "No." He said, "Why?" And the person says, "I want to go home, see my friends." And Michael's thinking, well, "Okay, I'm going to wake you up out of trance, and you're going to be fine. You'll go home, see your friends." He says, "No, I want to see my friends." All of a sudden, the client is like, "Whoa, there's so-and-so." And he's talking to somebody as if he's seeing somebody in his inner vision or something. And come to find out, what he had done is he had gone back to heaven or back home where we all come from. And he was having a reunion with some of his friends that had already passed on or passed away. Finally, the session ended and Michael couldn't get that out of his mind. He said, "What the heck is this? I mean, this is just bizarre." But Michael, being the kind of person he was just so curious. And so he proceeded to figure this out with 7,000 different clients. He would get them this trance and he would just suggest to them that they would go home. Well, the process was hit and miss for a while. And he finally started fine tuning it. And even to this day, we're fine tuning the process to make it more successful, where, the percentage right now is about 90% of people that want to have this session, want to visit the afterlife for a few hours, can do it.
Hang on, I got to interrupt you for a second. You just dropped a bombshell there, and I want to make sure
Yeah.
people understand what you're saying. You're saying that on the very first session, if someone goes to one of these, you or one of the other 250 practitioners of this modality,
Yeah,
you have a 90% chance of reaching heaven. 90.
that's, okay. I'll qualify that. I would say within 1 or 2 sessions, about
Okay, still.
about 80%, my clients about 80% successful in the first try.
Wow.
Wow.
The other ones what I do is I don't charge for a second session because that way people can relax. I say, look, if you need a second session, I'll do it for you for free within a few months, let things settle. When they come back, about 90% of them are successful. Then I had one woman recently, the first session, nothing much happened. Second session, she was able to go to a past life. And I'll explain the past life deal in a second too, why we use that as a way to get to where we're going. Okay. Second session, she experienced a past life, which she was like a cave woman. Walking around with a bag of stuff, and her husband was hunting, and they end up getting lost or something. She died in the snow, somewhere. After that, she says, well, wow. I says, if I'm making up a past life, I'm not going to be some woman in a fur thing following a guy in the snow so he can, It's just like, I'm going to be a princess. I'm going to be a princess.
Thus feminism was born.
Like this, or something. And so that intrigued her enough. So she came back for a third session. She was able to visit another past life. And all of a sudden, she sees herself pass away. She turns around and there's like a guide there, but then she's in what we call the black. It's like, we think it's a real place because some people end up being there and they just feel they're somewhere, but they don't see anything. All they do is feel good. Like, wow, I'm in this neat place, but I'm not seeing anything in my inner vision or anything. We have a way now that we've learned around that. We just take our time a little bit, let them float around in the black. And eventually, like happened with me, because it took me 2 times. First session, I got all freaked out, kind of like, what's going on? And I couldn't settle down. I got my left brain, my analytical brain, too much in it. So we had to stop the session. But 3 or 4 days later, they worked with me. We did it. And I went to the past life, which was pretty cool. And then I'm in this black and I'm not seeing anything. Well, the facilitator knew to just take his time with me. And about 10 minutes later, so I'm just flowing this black, I saw a pinpoint of like red, like a dot of red. And he said, well, just kind of float over towards it. And in a microsecond, I was out of there. There was my guide, and I had the most incredible experience of my life so far. That in my book, I just had to write it down because it was just so interesting that me, Regan, even in hypnotherapy school, when I went for 2 years, I was the last guy in the class to be hypnotized. I kept volunteering every time, pick me. And I'd go up there and I'd walk out going, this is nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not
So from firsthand experience, Regan, I'm telling you, it's because apparently we want it too much.
Yeah, that's the one thing. If you're pushing and trying, it's harder to happen. You just have to relax, because the process that we found works is that we just take people through the natural process of falling asleep. That's paying attention to the breath, and every breath, breathing in, and when you breathe out and you get to the very bottom of the breath, before you breathe in again, there's a real quiet space. It's like nothing's moving in your body. You're not using, no muscles are moving or anything. And it's kind of like you kind of ratchet down each breath you take. You're falling asleep, you get down to the bottom, you go a little deeper. And then you breathe in, you down the bottom. It's not like a light switch. People blip and you're just out, like that. It's a process of falling asleep. Okay. So what we do, because we're communicating with the person, right? As they're just about to fall asleep, we're communicating with them. So we kind of keep them in that relaxed state that's right on the verge of falling asleep. It seems that this is a natural thing. Like if people had the ability on their own to just relax, but to keep themselves just before falling asleep that way, I call it a God switch, but it seems that at that point, people easily access memories of past lives. Maybe they've been in heaven 1,000 times before. In our research, we found out that's our true home. It changes the paradigm a little bit when you realize you're not created in the womb, but God created you on the other side and you're just down here visiting. Okay. That even makes more sense as you think about it, that God creates us. And then we decide to have experience and learn and grow to be more loving, like a play that we want to be in, where you can play a certain character, where you can learn a certain thing that you wouldn't otherwise. It's easy for people to understand if I say, we're down here and we're in a play, and during our play, in different scenes, different people show up. Sometimes nice, sometimes our antagonist shows up, and we have these huge learning experiences, that we have to deal when we have to deal with the difficult things in life. So you picture this, you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching your play. So what I do to help people prepare for a session is send them homework. And in the homework, what they do is they write a list of the cast of characters in their play. They write just a few sentences about them. So we know who the players are. And
Right.
then they write a list of questions that they want to have answered about their current life. Some of the questions are general. We ask, like, why did this person decide to be born? What was their purpose? Because we all have meaning and purpose. What's the mission? What do we hope to learn? What do we hope to help others? Okay, we ask all those questions. But people have other questions. So many of the people that are doing these sessions are over 50, 60. You know, you get a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And they're at a point in their life where they're going, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I'm retired, blah, 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 blah. And then they want to find out what's their mission now that they have time to do things. You know, what can they do to make the world a better place and everything? So everybody has their own thing. And then, and the list of people, generally people have a handful of people that have died that they want to talk to when they get to the other side. That's what we call a soul group. We put terms on everything because it's easier to explain this process. So generally what happens is when people get to that deep state of relaxation, in order to access the other side, we ask their soul or their higher self to take them to a past life that has some sort of relevance to their current life, because there usually seems to be one you'd want to pay attention to, because we generally bring in some unfinished business into our current life that we're still working on something. We don't spend a lot of time in the past life because it's just a doorway to kind of get to the afterlife. Some people just come to me, they want to do a past life regression sessions, and we'll do that, and we'll spend a lot of time there, and we'll try to get as much information as we can, because some people want to kind of check that out and see if they can find a person of that name or things that they can remember, if they could kind of prove a past life, you know, kind of thing. But we usually just have to do 2 or 3 scenes from a person's memory of a past life that we have them go to the death scene. And I would say most of the time they're in a bed somewhere in a house. There's somebody there with them. Oh. Occasionally I've had people getting hung or been in battles and getting killed. We even had one that was only alive for a few hours. And it was just like a crib death in that lifetime. You know, people wonder about crib deaths. What was your purpose for that? My client who's in transit time says, well, I was going to come down, only be there for just a few hours or a few short time, because my mom needed to have the experience of having a baby that passed away then, because of stuff she would learn from that. Okay. And also it was karmic a little bit. By doing that, there was some kind of karma that soul, you know, got rid of. You know, there's a book, 2 books that are so great that Michael Newton wrote. They just sold over 1 million copies. One is called Journey of Souls. That's his first book. He did that in 1995. And about 10 years later, because so many people wrote him and said, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And he was continuing research all the time. So the second book's a little thicker. It's called Destiny of Souls. And in there's a lot more specifics, you know, about things that he found out, you know, about the afterlife and things like that.
Right.
So those are two great books for people that are listening to this podcast. They want to that way.
Awesome.
So
I like how you said, you talked about the dreams and how they can insert themselves into dreams to kind of make people feel better, because I know that happened to me when my grandmother passed away.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the dream that I had was she lived with my father at the time. And so my father and his wife were sitting at a table, and I was sitting there, or I was kind of observing. I don't even know if I was part of the dream, but I'm watching this dream happen. And my grandmother comes and she sits down between them, and they couldn't see her at all. But she looked directly at me and just smiled and nodded her head.
Oh, wow.
As you would do, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out, we are halfway through this interview, and I don't think we've asked you a single question. So this is actually the easiest interview we've ever done. We'll just tee it up and let Regan take it.
Yeah.
Now we do have to take a break. So before we continue the conversation, we've gone through the past life and the death experience. From there, it opens up the gateway into the afterlife. When we come back, we're going to dive into the afterlife with Regan Forson. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. We are talking to Regan Forson, who is taking us to heaven, right? I'm so excited because
he's like a heavenly tour guide.
Oh my God, why did I not think about that? In fact, I think we found our episode title, Regan, the Heavenly Tour Guide. Okay, before the break, we talked about how you use past life regressions as a gateway to get you into the afterlife. It makes perfect sense. You go to the end time, and then where do we go from there beyond that? Instead of coming back or going to another life, we now follow them. Right. I'm assuming that's exactly what you do.
Yeah. You go back home, spend some time there, and plan your next journey. You know, in the research we've done now, some souls choose not to come back. And not everybody that God creates has incarnations in force. Some souls that have been created are all the time behind the scenes. They're behind the scenes. But it seems like every soul they're doing work. And it seems like there's a progression. Like for a lot of people, once you become God realized in a sense where I say your love quotient is really, really great and you pass on, then a lot of times you'll take jobs as being on a council. It's kind of like if you're in the 6th grade and there's people in the 5th grade, there's things that they don't know yet. Okay.
Mhm.
But if you're really, really loving and that person down there you see need something, you kind of reach down and kind of help them out. But then you look above yourself and there's someone in 7th grade that's reaching down to you to kind of help you go on. So there's that kind of camaraderie of that love. We've not found anything of a negative nature at all in this process that people have. No one's experienced like evil demons or anything like that. It's just, if you experience it, you feel in a sense like as you're having it, it's just like buckets of love just poured over you, and that's the best way I can explain it. It's otherworldly in a sense.
Maybe that should be the episode title.
Buckets
Buckets
of love.
of
I like
love.
that too. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. We've spoken with a bunch of different people that have had near-death experiences, and sometimes the things they say are similar and sometimes they're different. In your experience, is heaven the same for everyone?
28 of us therapists, we swapped sessions. The very first session that I did was from a person that was a medium from Australia. He had a TV show and everything over there. And he wanted to go through a session. And here's I've been training in my manuals like this thick. So I've got the pages as I'm going like this. And I'm taking to a past life. And all of a sudden he goes, Regan. And I go, what? He says, I'm already in the past life. And I go, okay. So I got to go put the pages in. He's so far ahead of me. He ended up being a little girl. He was a girl about 8 or 9 years old, was carrying 2 buckets of water. And I said, what are the water for? She said, they're for the horses. And I forget what the little girl's name was. So I'm telling this because I'd say half the time, especially the women that I do the sessions with. And by the way, about 70% of the sessions of these 70,000 cases are women. And about 30% are men. Seems like women are so much, how, us guys are a little brain dead. So, it's hard for us to get vulnerable. It's hard for us to open up the heart a little bit more.
Once again, Regan is calling me out personally.
Yes.
I'm starting to get a little, get a little complex here.
Okay,
Regan.
I'll just say me. So this man who's in a past life now and is a little girl with the 2 buckets of water, I say, well, let's go home and see where the horses are. And she goes, I can't. And I say, why? She says, I can't cross this road. And I said, why can't you cross this road? She says, because this wagon that's coming down the road is going to run over and kill me. So here's my first session. There's this little girl in this other life. Heck, if I'm telling her to cross that road where she's going to get killed. I mean, this is my first session.
Go back.
And I'm going, I want okay. Luckily, what happened was the higher self of my client speaks and says, she needs to go through the experience. Tell her to cross the road. Okay, it's off of me now. He's telling me to tell that little girl who he was in another lifetime to cross the road and get killed.
Just following orders, boss.
Just following orders. So all of a sudden I said, what's happening? And she says, I'm bleeding out. The wagon and father ran over this little girl. And I said, okay, 1, 2, 3, you're out of your body. It says, no, I need to experience this. So I was quiet a little bit. And then the little girl says, through him says, okay, I'm finished now. And I said, well, what happened? She says, well, I died and I'm above my body. And I said, are you ready to go back home now? She says, no. She says, I have to stay here with the man that drove the wagon. He said, he's beside himself because he just ran over and killed a little girl. I thought, wow, how beautiful that is. That just shows you the love that's there for souls from there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, there was more in that session, but that would be another show. I can tell you there's all these crazy, wonderful sessions. But
I wanted to reel you back in for a second because I want to go back to Karen's question because her question was, in your experience, does everyone experience the same thing when they go to heaven, or is everyone's experience of heaven different?
Yes. Okay. That's 28 things. We asked the same questions. And then when we came back, we all did our report. What we experienced, we sent it to someone else in the institute there. They put it all together with PowerPoint and everything. And I asked just the last question I had, and before the council, we'll talk about the council in a minute. But I've asking questions of this. Then I call him Late C. Late C is a Chinese. For me, my guide had 6 of them there, but he's the one that always is the one I seem to talk to, or that seems, of course, to communicate with me. I said, this place that you're allowing us to bring people to, so that they can have this beautiful experience of heaven. Is this it? Is this heaven? Like just these, because we found about 8 different places so far, which covers a whole bunch of stuff that people do when they're over there. And
so
the guide
are different then.
Yeah. So the guide, I says, is this it? And he goes, you're going to miss me here, but he goes, and you just like this, you haven't seen anything yet, So what he was telling me, I think, was this is kind of like Heaven 101, it's opened up for people to get a glimpse. And the main reasons that they're getting a glimpse is they want people to realize that their life has meaning and purpose. They have a mission. They have something they wanted to learn, something they wanted to help teach other people or learn themselves. And the fact that they're never alone. All these 70,000 people, every single one of them has had a guide or someone that's kind of assigned to them, that they sometimes my clients will recognize them, start crying because it's someone all of a sudden they recognize, oh, there's so-and-so, someone that they love from the other side, and they're getting to see them again, like a friend you haven't seen for a long time. It's like, when you come back, having that experience, what they're hoping will happen is that people will get to work. They know what their mission is now. Most people find out that they're in the middle of their mission, that they're doing it, but it's nice to get that confirmation that your life, that you're really doing what you're supposed to be doing. Sometimes they'll say you need to step it up a bit. People are kind of gotten sidetracked a little bit in that, and they'll say, you might kind of get a little bit,
get to it,
get to it now. Yeah.
Right.
So
step lively, son.
Yeah. So I think, it's just like heaven and everything we're learning over there. We're learning because even having this session, we've somehow chosen this lifetime. You both and I, we've chosen to be here. This is where we need to concentrate mostly now, because this is the class we're in right now. This is what we're studying and everything, but it is nice to know that we had other classes and we learned other things in other lifetimes and things that are helping us to be better people in this lifetime. So in other words, they don't want people just spending their head in the clouds all the time because, hey, you got to get to work. And that's what this does. I mean, people have written me a couple of years, even after they had a session, and just said, you know what, ever since that day, life has just been different for me. I've looked at people different. I found more joy and happiness in my life. I'm not, bitching about how hard everything is, and they're not playing the victim role anymore because they know that they signed up to have tough things happen to them that they had to work through. I have had some experiences over there when I have clients in this deep state of trance, which they get into very easily, and they're experiencing the other side. That humor is a huge part of heaven, or the other side.
God.
Yay!
Thank God, because man,
I mean, yeah.
if you can't have a sense of humor about dying, I don't know what you can have a sense of humor about.
Well, what was interesting was I had a client, and her life is centered around lightness and love and humor and everything, and when she's in this process and she meets her guide and she's describing the guide to me and everything. And then so usually what we do is we say, well, so we can communicate properly with this guide, ask the guide if he'll give us his name so we can, like us humans do, address each other by name and everything. And the guide says, just call me Bob. She's in trance now, of course. And because she has this super sense of humor, she starts laughing so hard. I'm sitting next to her. I took this half an hour to get her deep in trance, and she starts laughing so hard, belly laughing. I start laughing so hard that way. And she said the guide was doing the same thing, and it was an introduction later on in that session. I happened to think, as a researcher, we always think of new questions to ask and everything, but I asked the guide because it seemed that her theme there was lightness and love. It was just a beautiful session we were doing. And I said, is there comedy clubs in heaven? And he goes, sure. Instantly, she's in this club. There's these other souls that are there. There's a guy, he said it reminded him of Rodney Dangerfield. This whole thing is about love and light, okay? So all of a sudden,
that's awesome.
I says, well, she's there at this like comedy club on the other side. And she said, well, it looks like Rodney Dangerfield. I'm not sure if it's him, but it's kind of like him. He's making the same kind of jokes. So Rodney, whoever that was, did a joke, and all of a sudden wings appeared on him. And the audience is laughing like crazy. She's laughing like crazy. I says, what was the joke? She says, I don't know, but everybody's laughing so hard. I'm laughing, He says, I guess it was like an
It's
inside
infectious.
joke. Like you had to be in heaven to kind of understand what that humor was. But then
I
here's
love
what
that.
was beautiful though. I started asking more questions. I said, well, ask your guide there, like, what's the importance of humor down here? He proceeded to do about a 10-minute through her talking, she would repeat exactly what he was saying through her. It was all about the describing, like, love is like, if you picture a pie, different sections like they do on PowerPoint and everything. And humor was a huge part of love. I just remember that visual image that she gave me from him. Every session is similar because everybody goes through basically a template or the same kind of process that they've lined up for people to experience over there. But because everybody's at a different rate of unfoldment or whatever, we're all individual, the sessions have a uniqueness to them, which is just, the hair stands up on my arms. Sometimes I'm sitting next to these people and they're in the afterlife having these beautiful experiences.
So a couple of questions. Let me first start with the obvious one. You're hypnotizing, right? You're bringing them into hypnosis to do past life regression. So first, the question is, when you get to a certain level, what theta waves, or I think it is, or whatever level that you get to, it's also at the level where they say you reach the collective unconscious. So if that's the case, and that's when you're really accessing your creative thoughts, could everything that we are talking about now, just be a creation, a fiction, us kind of creating a story for ourselves? What makes you think that specifically this is not just something we're making up, but rather we are actually crossing over and remembering things that happen between lives?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And in the research we're doing, we're constantly wondering about that. The simplest thing is, well, whether we're making it up or whether it's real, it has a super beneficial emotional and physiological effect on your body that makes life better or easier or seems to be more understanding. So whatever it is, it's a good thing, even if we're just making it up. What I find though is the fact that, okay, of the different stations they go to, this would be a good time to bring in there. Almost all of my clients experience going before counsel, getting their questions answered. The counsels are generally unique to each person. Some people have 3 or 4 elders or people on there. Sometimes people have 20 or 30, but generally it's 5 or 6, it's like an intimate group. And they can get questions about their life answered and everything. And then from there, we ask if they have permission to go to their soul group. And these are souls that they say they're your favorites. Like on the other side, like here on earth, we have good friends that we're really close to. Soul groups can range from 10 to 20 or 30 or 40, but then there's subgroups of those. Sometimes there's people that come from other acting troupes, in a sense, to come in and to be at our play. But here's what really makes it real to me. For instance, I'll give you an example. As I had a woman come to me whose husband had hung himself and killed himself. And she was totally beside herself. This man she loved for every ounce of everything she was, loved this man. And she came home and he was hanging in the garage. And she had not been able to work. She'd been going to therapists, and the therapist that knew the work that I did didn't seem to be getting anywhere with her. So he says, look, this may seem kind of weird, but here's Regan's number. And maybe he can help you contact your husband on the other side, and you can find out why he did this horrible thing and what's going on. So she came to me not believing in this process, just desperate to do something. Okay. She was one of my easiest clients. She got really deep there, went to a past life. And then we asked if the guy that we were with, he said, well, you probably know why we're here, but in case you don't, I'm going to just say my client here, her husband killed himself, and she's wondering if she can see him. They said, yes, but just for a short time, just for a few minutes. And so all of a sudden there he was. And oh my gosh, my client she's just crying like crazy. I'm crying like crazy because I'm feeling all the emotion, because she goes, this is here. This is him, Oh my gosh. And so she asked, why did you do that? He apologized. He says, I'm so sorry. She says, it had nothing to do with you. He says, there was some stuff I was dealing with from childhood abuse and things that I never told you about, and it just overcame me. And he says, when I hung myself in a way that I couldn't undo it, but I wished I could have done it. He said, but it was just too late and I couldn't. And he said, sweetheart, he says, look, I'm so sorry. And I hope when you pass away, we're back together again. If we get to do this over again or something, because I love you, we're soulmates or whatever, we're going to just give it another try. And that you could see that made her feel good. But then another guide comes in and said, that's all the time you have. And then he's looking at her and he says, I'm so afraid where they're taking me. I said, well, ask him why, because his reason is, well, where are they taking him? And he tells her these guides are taking him to show him what his life could have been like if he hadn't killed himself. In other words, if he had hung in there.
Lord.
Now
So
that made it real to me, because that's what an answer. I mean, doesn't that seem like the most loving thing that you could be done on the other side, that they know you goofed up, that you didn't, you took the easy way out because of your humanness and you blew your mission in a way, and they just, I believe they wanted to show him so that it would instill in him, when you go down and try it again, you can do it next time, don't take that way out. So that's just, oh gosh, there's so much emotion. Yep. So that's what makes it so real, is the fact that now after her having the session, she still missed him like crazy. She still had a grieving process to go through, but some heaviness lifted off of her because she realized it wasn't her fault. She got to see him and realize they're going to be together again and get an apology from him. Right. So did she make it up? Did it all enter something? Well, it sure was good.
You have all the answers for us because you've talked to so many different people about this. You have the answers about what happens in the afterlife. So I think we can have you back 17 times and still not get through all the information. So I got to ask the big question, because we're getting close to running out of time.
Yeah, we are.
And this is the question that everybody listening is begging me to ask. At least that's what I like to tell myself. In all of these sessions that you've done, what have they said, or has anyone said about God? What is God? Have they met God? Is there God? What is God?
Okay, here's another thing that makes this seem so real to me. When people on the other side say, well, can I see God? Or where's God? This place or this portal has been open. People feel the presence. They call it the presence over there. They feel the presence much more than we do here. Like they're closer in some sense to that. But it's almost like God is still beyond comprehension. Even there in heaven, it's not like you can go up and shake his hand or something, like he's a person or something. Like he's this loving presence that people feel, that know that this presence is there. But what is this presence? We seem to have to think of it in a bodily form, but it's this consciousness, or there's something that's not male or female, or it's just love, this consciousness. So in this part of heaven anyway, now people that have been Christian that come to me, I make sure that I ask over there, is Jesus around and can they have a conversation with him? Every single Christian that's come to me and done that has had a personal audience with Jesus. Tears are running down their eyes when they feel the love of Jesus. And the things that he tells them and stuff, it's just like you would think Jesus would be, total love, acceptance, and that. But for people that are, it's like Jesus is part of people's life, and he is part of this big equation and very, very important for a lot of people, but he's not everything, there's like, people ask, what's the one religion? They go, God, okay, now here I am. Tell me the one religion. I'm going to start it tomorrow, doing that.
It's the Church of Will.
Here so far, what we've got, when they ask about that, they say, if you feel you need a religion, choose one. If one speaks to you, that's going to help you in your mission, that's going to help you to be more loving, because you're going to feel like you need to have a religion, then go ahead. When we ask, what's the one practice, because people say, okay, I'm here right now, but I know I'm going to go back in my body and I'm going to be like dud again, like be able to have this experience. And they say meditation. They say that 100%, they'll say, if you want to kind of keep connected, if you want to have your intuition improve, so that you can hear the thoughts or what we're trying to help you with in meditation. And again, people who are meditation, I could do a whole show on that sometime if you want to, because meditation is, people have this vision that meditation is just one thing where you're just sitting in the lotus position for hours at a time and you're just aching and you can't stand it because you're being in one place for so long. There are so many ways to meditate. You can meditate for 2 minutes a day. They just want you to make that connection where you're like, when I was coming back, one of the big things when I was coming back, I felt I was above the world. Had this feeling I could see the earth, and it just looked, oh my gosh, just this beautiful ball in space, just slowly moving around. And it just, wow, what a most beautiful place. As I started getting a little closer, I started feeling physical pain. And my guy stunned me. And he says, what you're feeling, and you're feeling all the pain of the earth, all the emotion that people are having. Because you can imagine, like at this moment right now, if we had to, we would explode. We had to take a millionth of the pain going on people's emotions, right? And then he said to me, are you sure you want to do this work? Which is what I'm doing, this thing here. Here's this guy right there. And I said, F yes. So
thank you for censoring yourself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The radio stations are saying thank you right now.
Right. But that's how deeply I could feel it. Like I was making this choice to do this work. He said, okay, if you want to do this work, I'm going to tell you 4 things to do. And if you don't do these 4 things, your physical body is going to get sick and you're going to die. So I said, okay, I'm listening.
Wow.
Well, what do you want to do? Because we're dealing with energy here, and good or bad, how this is, it's a powerful amount of energy. And when me sitting next to these people all the time and experiencing that all the time, my physical vehicle here can only deal with so much. So he said this, and this would be good for anybody. He says, when you wake up in the morning, do some sort of spiritual exercise, which means just acknowledging, like I heard in my mind. This is the thing, is it's almost like I'm hearing things. I'm hearing a prayer in my mind as he's saying this. And what I heard was, bless this day and those that I serve, as I keep one foot in heaven and one foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission of being kind at any cost. And because kindness, I found out, was one of the things that I came down here to learn. And then the second thing he said, oh, okay, now they're showing me a picture in my mind of an hourglass, and I'm seeing clients, and you know how the hourglasses, of course, look. And I'm seeing clients, and the sand is piling up and piling up and piling up, and nothing's going through to the bottom. And he says, if the sand gets to the top, you're toast. Bye-bye. So when I saw myself, when he said, do spiritual exercises, I could see myself doing that. I started seeing sand going down to the bottom. The second thing was, he said, spend more time in nature, because nature is God's way. And we all know that somehow. When you go for a walk along the beach or you're in the woods somewhere, there's something that heals you. There's something beautiful about that. We all seem to just do that naturally. We know that if we go into nature, we're going to somehow heal. So I saw sand going down. The third thing was, she said, do as many random acts of kindness as you can. In my mind, I saw myself picking up a piece of trash that wasn't mine, just a little piece of trash. And someone else's, I put a thing and I could see sand going down to the bottom. And the fourth thing, he says, talk to other therapists, regular therapists that are dealing with people's problems all day. Ask them, how do they ground themselves? How do they do that? I've been pretty good at doing most of that. Give myself maybe a B- or maybe a B. That way I can still do a little improvement. Pretty good.
Yeah, and those are great tips for anyone to do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And now you're doing all these tips to keep yourself alive. And I have one last question that I have to know. After all of these sessions and experiences, how do you feel about your own death? Like, are you okay when it comes? Are you anxious about it?
Good question, because look at me. I'm in my mid-70s now. And when I was praying the other day, I was thinking, here's what my thoughts were. It's like, I feel like I'm just getting the hang of things here. So I say, now don't take me yet, because I think I could do some good here now, because I'm starting to get the hang of this, and it's starting to get really fun in life.
You look really healthy to me, Regan. I don't think you have anything to worry about. You're fine. You're fine.
I'm doing pretty good. But I would say, even though that human part of me now, we're attached to here. Life is good. But from experiencing all my clients, these hundreds that have had these past lives, and how they feel when they're out of the body, like, this is so great. and me being there a couple times and knowing that I just know when I leave this physical body and I'm looking down at it and I'm part of the bigger picture again, I'm going to be going, wow, cool. I can't wait to come back and do I want to come back again?
Right. Right.
But because look at the way the world's going right now. So if I go to say in 10 years, I'm wondering what's in 30 or 40 or 50 years are we going to be around anymore? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we think about that for our daughter, actually. It's something it's very, very much in our top of our minds,
now,
unfortunately.
if we did, I mean, you guys are cool. I love the way you do your show and everything like that too. I'd be happy to come on.
Thank you.
We could do another show because I wanted to get into today, but we don't have time of the quantum healing hypnosis, which is what I've incorporated in mine, and about the physical healings that happen sometimes to people over there, and especially emotional healings that happen. And also about the other different stations. There's some people experience the station where they can actually go back and they can see when they chose their current life. Like you're looking down and you can, it's so interesting how they explain it, where you're seeing this process of how do you choose another life. There's the library some people go to. Usually they'll sit them down in front of a book and a guide will get a book and you're paging it through and it has everything you've ever been since you were born.
What if you don't read?
Yeah.
There are people out there that hate to read.
Is it in English?
Well,
are there audiobooks? Can you listen to the books?
In the pages that my clients have described it as pages of light. And they know they're getting on some level, they're seeing everything, but their physical self can't really tell you exactly what that was. But they just say, I just know I'm seeing everything. And on some level, I'm getting that. There's a place of rejuvenation where people go, and sometimes they don't want to go on to another part of heaven because they love it so much, where they can feel their whole inner self and body being cleansed and cleaned. Oh my gosh, there's so many stories of that. That's really great. And so there's a lot there that we've discovered that you can't get over and talk about in an hour,
Yeah, no, we're gonna have to get you back now. So just to summarize really quickly, because we are way out of time, but you actually bring people into a hypnotic state that allows them to transfer their consciousness to a time when they were in between lives, and they can actually go there and speak to and experience heaven, speak to anyone in heaven, speak to Jesus, hang out with good old Jay himself, hang out with your guardian angels or your spirits or whatever you believe, and you can stay there as long as you want. You can get whatever answers you want, and then come back and not have any kind of adverse reactions or anything like that. That sounds like heaven on earth.
It really does.
Yes, definitely true.
Awesome.
In my experience so far.
And the best thing about it is that anybody within the sound of our voice right now, anybody could reach out to you and get that done right now. Right? This is not an exclusive thing that just kings and queens get access to. Right? Any Joe Schmo like Will and Karen could actually get this done. And we tried hard to get it together. We weren't able to connect it, but maybe for the next one we'll be able to handle something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Because I have a bit of a waiting list, but it's not as bad as it went with Michael Newton. He had a 4-year waiting list when he was doing this.
Oh my gosh.
Now that we have 250 of us, as people go to newtoninstitute.org and they can look for a therapist in their area of the 250 of us. And what I say to people, people, when they find me on there, they go, well, there was these 3 or 4, but I just felt, I saw your face or something, and I just knew you were the one. And it seems to work out good that way. So if they can have a session, I'm happy to help them find someone in their area. If there's not anybody, we can do it online. I have one, other therapist now. She's here. She's actually on the board now. And she's been just doing so many of these in India in the middle of the night or whenever she's up. Whatever, it's just one person after another on and some therapists now are preferring just to do it on Zoom because it's just so much easier. I love to do it in person the most, but on Zoom, I did one in Philadelphia last week. It was really, really great. Connected with a really good person. We had a A+ session. Nice. People go by your gut. Hey, is Regan the right guy for me, or do I need to find somebody else?
You have a website called visittheafterlife.com, right?
Yeah, there's 2 T's. Yeah. Visit theafterlife.com. Great videos on there. You can see actually a young lady going through the process on there. And you see Michael Newton's on there talking about before he passed away. He had some things. And there's some really good information on there. So they can contact
Great.
me on the contact page. There's phone number in there. And I'm
All right.
happy to help anybody comes my way.
Excellent. We're going
Thank
to
you.
add direct links in our show notes to your website and to the books that you mentioned. Everything one-stop shop when it comes to Regan Forson. Just go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to his episode page. You'll see all the stuff there directly laid in for you. So it makes it super easy to contact you. Regan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really
welcome.
appreciate your time and your sharing of this really cool modality with
Yeah.
us that we literally have just scratched the surface on. So yeah, we're gonna reach out to you. We'll get you back on. We got a lot to talk about.
You guys
Yeah,
are fun.
so-
Yeah. You're good hosts.
Thank you.
I would
Thank
love
you.
to be on again sometime.
We hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. If you did and you feel called to give back, we invite you to visit our website at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can donate to the show or subscribe as a member through our Buy Me a Coffee campaign. Your support will go a long way towards allowing Karen and I to bring you these wonderful conversations and teachings in more and more robust ways. Well, that's all for now. We will see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.